You don't need endless motivation. You don't need crazy discipline. You don't need superhuman willpower. Starting your print-on-demand business and building a version of yourself you actually trust comes down to a few simple system shifts. I know because these exact shifts changed everything for me. First, with my health, and then with my business. And today I'm going to show you how to use them to finally get your print-on-demand brand moving with no motivation required. So the first system shift that we need to make comes with our mindset reframe. When we are about to go on an adventure or we're looking to start something new, a lot of times we turn to social media or we go to YouTube and look at people who are actually doing that. And a lot of times we'll watch the video or we'll look at the Instagram post and we'll think to ourselves, well, it must be easier for them because they have better genetics, or, oh, it must be easier for them because they probably had a lot of money to start their business. Whatever it may be. And I completely understand because I used to believe the same thing. In fact, when I was on my health journey to losing weight, this is how I looked after I graduated college, I used to believe that too. And I would be scrolling on Instagram and I'd come across these beautiful people and I'd think to myself like, oh, well, they must just have better genetics than I do. Like, no way would I ever have six-pack abs, or it must just be easier for them because you can tell like they come from money and so they can afford to have a personal trainer or somebody who's making their meals for them. And really, I was just starting to tell myself all of these made up stories in my mind, like as if I had known that person. And I knew none of their background. I knew none of their story. And honestly, at the end of the day, they probably didn't have any leg up over me. It was just me making up these stories in my mind because it was easier for me to do that than to come to reality of I just need to start. I need to start progressing in some way, shape, or form to reaching this goal. So now, as I've become somebody within business, I've decided to change the mindset and change the narrative. So instead of looking at people who are maybe further along than I am, or they've gone farther in business, or they make more money than I do, or they're farther with print on demand, or they sell more t-shirts, whatever it may be, I used to look at that and come up with the narrative and the story of why they're better and why this is easier for them, and really decided to change that narrative. And in my mind, now I look at that as almost motivation to push myself forward and to be the better version of myself and simply just start. Because once we get started, that's when we start to realize that it's just the people who can continue the repetition, that is truly what builds the momentum and then the success. So if you're somebody who's sitting here and you're maybe watching this video and thinking, no way would I ever have a print-on-demand business bigger than Meg Heckman, you're absolutely wrong. You definitely could. It's just about who's going to continue, who's going to show up every single day, even on the day where they really don't want to show up, and put their all into it. In fact, we can take this video, for example. I'm filming this on a Sunday. I would much rather be outside enjoying this beautiful weather in Texas than sitting indoors creating this video. But I decide that even on the harder days, on the days that I don't want to show up, those are the days that I need to push myself even more. Because if I continue to show up, even on the hard days, I'm going to grow, I'm going to progress and become a better person for it. And the truth is, success comes from building better systems, not becoming better people. And as we dive into this video a little bit more, you're going to understand what I mean by that. So let's dive into the first step, which is simplify to start. As human beings, we tend to overcomplicate things. I don't know why, but we do. We overthink it. We'll think about every little thing that needs to be done. And while doing that, we won't get anything done. And I completely understand because I still do this from time to time. And it's something that I see beginner sellers also doing. They'll come into our community or they'll start our course and they'll be thinking about the LLC, the bank account, credit cards, how to create designs, which system's the best for creating designs, what AI tools should I use, should I buy a Shopify theme, should I use a free theme, which print provider should I go with? The list goes on. And this is something that new print-on-demand sellers do all the time instead of just breaking it into bite-sized pieces and taking it one step at a time so that we're actually completing a step before moving on to the next step. So for the case of print on demand, I always suggest people taking it step by step and really starting to think about one product. So what's that one product that we want to sell? I will always suggest t-shirts because they're an evergreen product. Everybody buys them. If you go for a walk outside, you'll probably see 15 people wearing a graphic t-shirt. They sell. We want to be driving people to our store via one sales channel, because if we're doing that, we're not overcomplicating and thinking about all the other sales channels and all the other ways that we can possibly be getting people to our store. It allows us to focus on one and get really good at that one sales channel that brings people in. And that could be organic. If you're somebody who's super creative and you love making content and videos like this, power to you, because I feel so uncomfortable when I sit in front of a camera like this. But if that is something that you love and you're creative and you love making videos about t-shirts and other products, then go organic. If you're somebody who's like, no way do I want to put my face behind a camera or spend the time creating all these videos of t-shirts, I'd rather just pay this sales channel to get people to my site for me. Great. Then Facebook ads is going to be the best move for you. But it's focusing on one sales channel. So as we're focusing on one product, one sales channel, the last piece is focusing on one customer. We do not want to be making some big mega general store. And I get it. When I was coming into print on demand, I thought, how can I have more customers? Oh, if I just have a store that offers everything, I'll have millions of customers. And the truth is, when we do that, we aren't speaking to any single avatar or any single customer. Instead, it's just generic and out to the world. And you don't build that connection that we're looking for. The way that Chris and I have run our brands over the last few years is really trying to connect with our customer on a level that no other brands are capable of really doing. Like when we think of other big t-shirt brands, you have Etsy out there, which yes, it's smaller sellers. And then, you've got the Redbubble, which is kind of like a general store. They're not talking to a particular single person either. So people are looking for that. They're looking for that connection to one another through a brand. And so we provide that, and it's through our t-shirts. So when we're focusing on the one product, the one sales channel, and then the one customer, we're really building a cohesive brand where people will want to come back time and time again, which is very different from how a lot of other kind of sites work and how a lot of other people run their print on demand stores. Chris and I like to think of our Shopify stores as brands, and we run them as brands. We don't like to think of them as a store that's going to be short-lived and then we move on to the next one. So when we compare all this print on demand talk about getting things started and simply just doing something, we can think of t-shirts and the one sales channel and the one customer as simply like our walk around the block, if we're connecting this back to exercising. So when I was trying to lose weight after I graduated college, I was super unhealthy, as you saw in the picture earlier in this video. And I used to sit there and think, okay, I need to wake up at 5 a.m. I need to eat just broccoli and chicken. I need to go to the gym 5 days a week. I need to lift weights. I need to run 5 miles. Like, I was overcomplicating it. I was overcomplicating the entire process of just wanting to become a healthier version of myself and lose the extra weight that I had gained in college. So in my health journey, what actually gave me clarity and had me start moving in the right direction was making small little shifts that I could easily make within my normal day-to-day life. So starting with water before I drank coffee in the morning, I would add in a 10-minute walk. I would take the stairs rather than an elevator or escalator. I didn't eat snacks in front of the television because I realized when I did that, I overate those snacks. And so these little tiny changes that they weren't huge. They weren't these big, huge, massive changes of going to the gym every day at 5 a.m. and trying to eat spinach smoothies and all that stuff. And it made it attainable. And then when I started to see some results, I started feeling better and I started slowly kind of losing some weight. And that was enough to have me continue and push forward. And then you add a little bit more into the mix and you start to truly understand. And it was when I wasn't overcomplicating losing weight that's when the real results started to happen. And these small wins lowered the bar so that I felt like I could actually move in the direction that I needed to move in. And I see it happen all the time with newer sellers getting into print on demand. We need to lower the bar so that they feel like they're gaining traction. Now, starting is definitely critical. If we don't start, nothing ever happens. But it's staying consistent that separates those who fail from those who succeed. And we're going to get into that. But real quick, if you want a simple tracker for you to help build better daily habits, especially around launching and growing your print-on-demand business, then click the link in the description below and join my free school community. There, you'll get access to our WeScale tracker so you can stop relying on motivation and overcomplicating the entire process and start building real systems in your daily life and finally create consistency that grows your brand. Now, let's get back to it. The second system shift that we need to make is rebuilding our mental operating system. Motivation will burn out. We can have that fresh start and feel so ready for the next movement. But as we get into it and things get hard, that motivation burns out pretty quickly, I would say, because very quickly we usually get slapped in the face, just like with my health journey. When I tried going to the gym 5 days a week, when my body was so not used to that, I got slapped in the face by feeling really sore and having a hard time walking, and it really hurt to, squat to sit down on the toilet. And that, for me, that motivation burned out real fast. Getting up early and going to the gym, I didn't like that anymore. And when that motivation fizzled out, I no longer had the feeling to want to continue moving forward. So again, we need to find ways to keep the motivation going and basically make changes that won't allow us to fail. So some things that helped me on my health journey was putting my shoes next to the door so that even if I was downstairs and didn't want to go for a walk, I was presented with my shoes. And it was like, there they are. There are my shoes. I should really go for the 10-minute walk. And so that's what I did, and it worked. And another thing was meal prepping. So instead of feeling like, oh my goodness, now I have to think of something healthy to make, I didn't have to think of anything healthy to make because I had already made it. I had already planned out my meals. I planned out what I was going to eat each day so that it didn't allow me to fall off the wagon where, a lot of times when we're trying to lose weight or we're trying to start a business, we'll have these great intentions, but very easily get sidetracked. You're out with your friends and maybe you brought your lunch with you and instead it's, let's just get pizza instead. And you can fall off that track. But if you have everything ready to go, it's all prepped, you're then going to keep yourself on track and you're not going to fall off the wagon. And so the way that this kind of shifted into then how I focused on business was I would do a 60-minute deep work session. At the time, I was still working as a nurse when I started my print-on-demand business. So putting an hour to the side where it was just, hey, I'm going to focus on this one thing and one thing only, that helped so much because it didn't allow me to go, okay, I need to look at the customer service stuff and then I need to look at the Shopify backend and I should check on the Printify account and make sure all of my stuff's being shipped out appropriately. And your brain can just go in these circles. So when I set this 60-minute deep work of the most important task that I had for that day, and most of the time it was, hey, I got to create designs and then get those designs up on the store. That was pretty much my deep work because I was the busy operator at that point in time. Another thing that helped me in my business journey was taking one major task per day. So like we were just talking about, a lot of times it was simply just designing. And in the beginning, that happens a lot. But then once we get beyond that and there's more pieces to the puzzle kind of playing in effect, then it's like, okay, that 60 minutes changed and it turns into launching ads during that 60 minutes and tackling that one big task that I had, or creating a new ad, or trying to optimize my site, because instead of having that split focus all over the place, it allowed me to focus on one thing. And basically I could cross that off my list and go, okay, now I got to let it run a little bit. And then I'll look at the data and the feedback and determine if all that I just did helped or hurt. And then if it hurt, I go back and change it again. If it helped, great. Now we're cruising and I can really get concentrated on the next big task that I have. So set yourself up for success and don't, we have to have these little reminders of almost like the shoes that I put next to the door so that when I walked in the kitchen, I saw them and I knew, okay, I really should go for a walk. And so we can be making these same changes as far as starting our business and seeing how that progresses. And for you, it could be simply hanging up a graphic t-shirt, hanging it on your wall next to your computer. And that way, when you go in to, check social media or go into your office and grab something, you see the graphic t-shirt or whatever product that you want to sell hanging there on the wall. It's almost like your visual reminder to, okay, I need to sit down. I need to take 1 hour, because you can get a lot done in an hour. If it's an hour, hour that is actually focused on the most important task, you could knock a lot out in an hour. So sit down for the hour, do the designs or launch the ad or whatever the biggest task is that you have on your plate on that day, knock it out and you're going to feel so much better. And that is going to be the motivation or what turns into the consistency to continue to push you forward. So we need to stop relying on these feelings of motivation and like, yes, we're pumped. We need to engineer our default behavior to simply being, even on the days that I don't want to be doing this, that I don't want to sit down and design, or I don't want to upload 15 products to Printify. We need to get ourselves to a point where we are sitting our butts down in our chair and we are knocking out that big task. And it's only 1 hour a day. Most people have an hour a day. And if you're saying to yourself, I don't have an hour in my day, I'm going to say 95% of you are lying to yourself. And you should probably do some deep thinking on that, because everybody has an extra hour. Even I do. I say it to myself sometimes and I'm like, no, I do. I have the time. I'm just avoiding it because I don't want to actually be doing it. And then I sit myself down and I force myself to do it. And once we build that rhythm and stop trying to force the success, we start to become the person who has these wins. And when we get those wins, that's truly when the traction happens, because it stops feeling as hard as it is and it gives us the push forward that we need, even after we've lost that initial spark, that initial motivation to getting things up and things going and being excited about this new business venture. And once you build that rhythm, you stop trying to force success to happen and you start becoming the person who has the wins, because we continue to show up time and time again. So the third step and system change that we need to make is stack identity, not outcomes. When we are first starting out in business, we create these big lofty goals and we obsess over this big goal and we feel like that goal is what's going to drive us, and we'll obsess over the outcome and what we want to get out of it. And we'll obsess over, maybe it's we want to hit 10K a month in 2 months, and it can absolutely be done. I'm not saying it can't. I've seen people do it time and time again, but they'll obsess over the outcome. And when they're doing that, they're doing a disservice to themselves and they're not becoming the person who will be able to get there, because we're not building the foundation. And so I relate this back again to my fitness journey. I had this lofty goal of, I wanted to lose the weight, but not only did I want to lose weight, I wanted 6-pack abs, because, who doesn't want 6-pack abs? And it was when I stopped looking at the outcome that I wanted to get. That's when the biggest shift occurred. And that was the habits that I had made for myself. The habits had changed. The day-to-day of my life had changed. And I had the motivation. I had all the tools in the toolbox to get things done. I had built this foundation that was going to allow me to get the outcomes that I wanted. And to this day, I still don't have 6-pack abs. And that's okay. I'm fine with that. But the same thing happens in business. So when we're obsessing over these big lofty goals, we aren't focusing on building the consistency and the daily habits and showing up on the days even when we don't want to show up and we don't want to do it. So if we're breaking down all of these systems to build a great foundation, that's where we start to then see those wins. So it's almost like this, like the scales, like a teeter-totter almost. It's like if I'm focusing on the outcome, I'm not building the foundation. Versus if I'm being consistent and building a solid foundation, that is going to get you those outcomes. And it's very hard, because when you're just telling somebody, well, show up on the day that you don't want to show up and, build the foundation. And if you continue being consistent and doing these things, like the wins will happen. We can all say that. But until we start to realize that that is the true key to the success, we're never going to believe it. And it takes a while to get there, because I look at my career, alone with just content or even, with business, I always had these big goals and I still have big goals, but I don't make those big goals my identity. I don't want to just be the person who has luck and reaches those goals. I want to be the person who is building the foundation, consistently showing up, even on the days where it's beautiful outside and I would rather be going for a walk and sitting by the water. I want to be the person who continues to show up, even on the days that they don't want to do it, because I know by doing that, I'm going to reach all of these big goals that I have for myself. So I want to be building myself to be the person who follows through, even when no one's watching. So I want to be my biggest supporter. I want to be the one who holds myself accountable. Every small action is a vote for the person that we are becoming. So by taking these small little steps, we are truly becoming that 1% better than we were the day before. So winning isn't just one big move. It's the result of thousands of these small votes, these small changes that are stacking up over time. And when we have enough of these votes stacking up or enough of these little changes day by day, we don't just build a business, but we build unstoppable self-trust in ourselves. And you're going to notice that when you do this in one area of your life, all the areas of your life are then going to change. So remember, you are not lazy. You are not undisciplined. You are not broken. You've just been using systems that don't support how you work. So here is your new framework. We need to simplify to start. We need to rebuild our mental operating system. We need to stack our identities and not our outcomes. And when we are doing this, we are truly going to be that person who's able to accomplish anything that they put their mind to. So drop a comment below and let me know which step that you plan on focusing on first. And again, if you want to grab that free WeScale tracker, click the link in the description below and join our free school community. There you'll gain access to not only the tracker, but hundreds of other free resources for those who are starting their print-on-demand business. I'll see you in the next one.